So, I've been struggling lately with books. Both of the books, the book I finished a while ago and the book I'm currently attempting to power through right now, were not books I'd say I enjoyed. I mean, they weren't bad books by the end, but they weren't books that I started and I thought, "Ooh, this is so good. This is grabbing my attention like crazy. I really am so excited to read this every day." These are books that I feel like I'm kind of like forcing myself to read out of stubbornness or maybe just the principle of the thing, which is weird because I just DNF'd two different books from my e-reader because I just didn't like the vibes immediately. But there's this strange middle ground with books like Riders of the Purple Sage or like the first Malazan book where they're not inherently like, oh, this is horrible, but they're also not like, oh, this is amazing. They're good books that have, I think mainly the problem is a writing style that I don't like. And in a world where there are essentially infinite amount of books to read and an extremely finite amount of time to read them, the question then becomes, should you force yourself to read these kinds of books that don't exactly mesh with what you would call a good book, but also do not fit into your personal definition of a bad book? And I think the answer is you shouldn't always do this. These are not the only kind of books you should read, obviously, but I think, honestly, once in a while, this is a good thing to force yourself to do. It's a good practice in a way to give yourself delayed gratification in this sense, to be able to pick up a book and look at it and say, okay, this isn't inherently for me. This is not what I would normally have picked out for myself, but it is not bad. I can understand from a technical standpoint or from a, you know, just vibe standpoint that this is not a bad book, a poorly executed book. And I think stepping out of your comfort zone like that, for especially for something so low stakes as a book, is a great thing that you should always do, especially if you are trying to be a writer or something like that. It's good. They say it all the time, like the best thing a writer can do is read a bad book, you know? And I also think it's good to read books that are not, they don't mesh with your traditional definition of a good book. Like if you look at my story graph, you will see I mostly read high, fast-paced books that are on the shorter side because that's what I like. I like that dopamine, instant potato chip popcorn kind of like book. So when I read a book like Gardens of the Moon or Riders of the Purple Sage, like I'm reading right now, I literally stopped reading it to record this because I was just thinking and sitting here and thinking, damn, I'm reading this. They're, I wouldn't say better because obviously they're not better. What is better or worse in entertainment is purely subjective and purely up to you as the person getting the entertainment from this thing. But it's a step off the path, I guess, is the best way to put it, which is very good. In any sense, it's good to do this once in a blue moon, to step off the path and try something different, if try a new food you've never eaten before, or draw something you aren't normally comfortable with. If you draw a lot of landscapes, do some figure drawing, and vice versa. Like if you play a lot of D&D, DM once in a while. Stepping out of your comfort zone for your hobbies is a great great thing because it lets you get more out of the hobby. Maybe if you mostly do figure drawings and you draw some landscapes, you realize I really like landscapes. You have a new enjoyment. You have a new outlet for this thing that you love, which is why I think it's important once in a while to do this. Like, I have never read a Western. True Grit, which I read in February, was the first Western I've ever read, unless you count The Dark Tower, which is kind of a Western, but that's a stretch in my opinion. True Grit was the first traditional Western I had ever read. And now this, Riders of the Purple Sage, the second Western I've ever read, is nothing like True Grit. It's meandering, it's kind of slow. 85% of the book is prose, and almost all of that prose is just describing nature, like this is a Lord of the Rings book, but it's still interesting. It still has interesting themes and concepts and things going on that I am enjoying. It's just not written in a way that I enjoy. So I'm not torturing myself with this book. I'm just trying something different. Now, like I said earlier, there are infinite books and a extremely finite amount of time to enjoy them. So it's up to you to decide what's more worth it to you. A new experience, maybe something that will turn into your new favorite kind of experience, or do you want to stay in your little bubble, your little bubble, and keep reading only Brandon Sanderson books, or only Stephen King books, or only drawing landscapes, or only playing D&D instead of DMing? Or do you want to maybe have some less peaky peaks and more deep valleys for a little while, and proudly look at yourself in the mirror and say, I tried something new, and maybe it didn't work out, but that's okay because I tried. And I think that's important. That's something everyone should do at least once. So, yeah, do it. Why not? Read a book that you don't love. Do something